we're approaching the end of this month and we're trying to push in as much as we can. And today we will be discussing questions of Shailah b'Rosh Challah for different reasons. When a person was mafresh Challah and the Challah is nis'arev be'iso, and now we have a situation of taroivis isor, and there is not kuf aleph kedei levatel. Some scenarios, Challah is nis'arev be'isa, and the Bnei Bais already ate part of that taroivis. So we do find in Shulchan Aruch that a person could be shayel on a Rosh Challah. Shin Chov Gimel, Sif Aleph, Ramah, person was mafresh, Challah nis'arev, one could be shayel. There's a big Taz, and the Torah Zohar argues against the Ramah. No. Every neder, when we come to be matir as a neder, we need a Pesach. And the Pesach needs to be be'ikar ha'afrosh. The Pesach cannot be because of anything that happened after the neder or after the hafrosh. So there's a huge Taz, the beginning of Shin Chov Gimel, and the Taz rejects the eights of the Ramah. And the Shiur, Siman Kuf Chov Tes, Siman Kuf Lamed, and most of the Achronim, some of them are wrote in Pischei Tshuva on this part, say no. Sha'ar al Tumas, Ma'ases Challah doesn't need a Pesach at all. Only neither the Issa need a Pesach, and not when you're shoyal on Challah. So the Achronim are already big discussions about the possibility of Shailah when we have a problem and we are interested to undo a Rosh Challah and do it again. Primarily in a situation in which the Challah is nis'arev b'bosek and everything is also, so what does one do? So you could undo a Rosh Challah l'idei Shailah and then be mafresh once again. So today we will shortly be discussing 4 patentim, sparks of genius, Gedolei Yisur through the ages. New eitzes, Shaloi Shalom, I was saying. And many times they say, what is beautiful is not always true and loyal. That's in life and in Halacha as well. So most of these patentim that the Rishonim didn't think about them usually are very questionable, but they are inspiring nevertheless. So I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4 and touch 4 chidushim that we find in present-day Gedolim or Gedolim of previous generations that came up with really sparks of genius and new ideas, and I think most of them are quite questionable. So it is brought in Shmira Shabbos Hilchos and many other Achronim, and the father of this idea is the Eretz Tzvi, which already brings a question mark or an asterisk. So the Eretz Tzvi Kushik Lavarov, who really was a genius, one of the great Talmidim of the Avnei Nezer, gives an eitzah that Godel Ha'ir should be mafresh Challah for all the Bnei Ha'ir. Anybody that forgets to be mafresh Challah, he is mafresh for them. And Reb Shimon Zalman used to do that every Erev Pesach, others bring every Erev Shabbos, but definitely every Erev Pesach. And the Godel Ha'ir is mafresh for everyone. We find this idea, and we actually learn these halachas, Erev Tavshilin, Simatov Kuf Zayin, Besif Tes, and that is already found in the Gemara. But my feeling is that is a din miyuched in Erev Tavshilin. We do not find it elsewhere. We find it in Eruv Chatzeres, but Eruv Chatzeres is always a communal thing. Members of the community come together and they do Eruv Chatzeres together. We find it by Eruv Tavshilin. Eruv Chatzeres and Eruv Tavshilin both are the Rabbanans, and by Eruv Tavshilin I think that was part of the Ikar HaTekona. It's found in the Gemara. Yes, Erev Tavshilin is the Mishnah, and this eitz is only found in the Gemara, but maybe it is a din miyuchad. Erev Tavshilin is all about the Hekar, Eruv Chatzeres is all about the Rishus HaRabim, so in these halachas we find that one is mafresh and he is mezaka for all the others. I have this suffix regarding Mechilas Chametz every year, because every year by Mechilas Chametz, there are always those that come panting and running 5 minutes after we did the Mechira, whether we still could sell Chametz. So I do specify in the Shtar Mechira, when I sell the Chametz to the Goy, that I also sell the Chametz of those people that belong to my Kehillah, to my community, and they probably wish that I sell their chametz, and they sell chametz with me in previous years. I don't think there is such a thing that a person could be zoiche to Kollel and Kollel. I think whether Zchi is metam shlichus or Zchi is not metam shlichus, so we discussed that either the previous year or the year before that. I think the zoiche needs to know for whom he's zoiche. What type of a shlichus is it? I'm zoiche for everybody. For whom? For the whole world, for the whole city. It must be a group, something unites them. So I am willing to accept, although I don't have anyone specific in mind, but B'nai Kihilosi, those people that usually sign up with me, I don't think there's such a thing, a person could be Zercha for everyone. So being Mafresh Challah for Kol B'nai Ha'ir, so would that include all the Shchunot, Pisgat Zev, Givat Zev, Old City, New City? Does it have to do with Samach Venera by Mikra Megillah? Is it the whole world? Could you do it for the whole world or only for the whole city? I have a very uneasy feeling. By Mechilas Chametz I do it. Mechilas Chametz in most cases is just L'Ravcha de Milza, and Beleis Breira we do it. But I don't think that's an Eitzel Chetchila for the mere reason that we don't find it. We do find it in Gemara by Erev Tavshilin. Libi Yoimali, it's a din b'yochid in Erev Tavshilin. And in Erev Tavshilin we could rely on it only once. And we discussed once in a lifetime, or in a sequence, one time after the other. So would we say by Rosh Challah also it would work only once and not more than once? I don't know. By Erev Tavshilin I feel it's a din b'yochid. Maybe by Erev Chetzedes as well. Because Erev Chetzedes is always a communal thing, bringing together the Chetzedes of all different people that live in the same Chotzer. So by Erev Chetzedes usually it is Bnei Chotzer. One is Zoiche for all the others, Bnei Chotzer, Bnei Movi. They know each other. Each of them has a name and an address. I am very skeptical whether a person could be Mafresh Challah for Kol Bnei Ha'ir. Nothing brings them together. Neither do they know each other, nor will they ever know each other. I don't think a person could be Zoiche for the entire world. So this is just a short comment on the eights of Kollel Iyar. So
what's Kehillah for a Shchuna, small Shchuna, small?
Yeah, I think that is more reasonable. What I say now is not definitive. It's more Hargosha Saleh. And that is why when I sell chametz, my stipulation and the way I formulate it is my people, my Kehillah. So yes, I know my Kehillah. If I will see the person, I will recognize them. I might not have their names, and I don't have a list to offer the goy, but I think there must be some yichud to be zoiche. I don't think a person could be zoiche for the entire world. It seems very strange to me. There needs to be some linkage, some akora, some zika. The original din of Zichron Li'odem Shaloi B'Fonav is when a person is makabel a shtar shichur for Pliny Almighty that he knows. He didn't ask me to do so, but I have him in mind. Zchia for a city, for people I don't know, I never will know. I won't recognize them if I ever see them. Tzorech in Godel be'enai, whether there is such a type of zchia. I want to apologize and ask my precious Talmidim. I'm a good thinker. I'm a very lousy searcher. So what I say from my memory. It's very hard for me to look for things. So if you find, whenever I say a shiur, if you find any sources, I will be very appreciative. So if you find sources, whether there is such a type of zchia, I will be very happy to know.
If it was
So-
a hechsher, but it was for the whole country, that would also be enough?
A
They have a
hechsher,
hechsher, but they have factories all over the country, maybe all over the world. Can you take off a fresh Shabsai for that? I mean, would that work for anyone that made a mistake?
I mean, it goes without saying that we're dealing if minamukaf would not be a problem. Yeah, let's say the mitzvah minamukaf is not a problem. So, if you have, you're a mashgiach, and you need to be mafresh the challah from 10 bakeries, yeah? Yes. So you visit the bakeries, you know them, you have a list, and you're aware of who they are, then it would work.
The whole world?
Like it's not Bais.
The whole world.
Where are the factories?
Where would you keep the list of the whole world?
No, you have a list of factories that are under your ashkaf.
So if you have a list, and it is real, and these factories pay for the hechsher, yes, then it would work. It is not the number that counts. I don't think there is a concept of zochen when you don't know whom you're zochen for, and you're zochen to everybody. When you're zochen to everybody, you're zochen to nobody, because everybody is not a hagdor. So yes. So usually zochen is for a yochid. Could be 10 yochidim, could be 100 yochidim, but there needs to be something real and personal. Zochen la'adam shaloi b'fana. So you're zercha for an individual, you're zercha for a family, you're zercha for a group, you're zercha for a community, but it must stop somewhere. I don't think it's reasonable that one person decides he's mafresh challah for the entire world, and nobody in the world will be over on tevel. Nobody in the world will be over on achilas tevel when he's going to eat bas or when he's going to eat peres shaloi hufreshu mehem to megedolah. So meiser has a shiur. But if it's to megedolah, I don't think it's reasonable. But it's orchian. So if you find sources, I would like to know. The other eitzah, if a person forgot to be mafresh challah, and it's Shabbos, and it's an Etz Yisrael, chutz la'asor, chol yachekach mafresh, but in Etz Yisrael there is no eitzah, or if chol yachekach mafresh. And there is no Kollel Eiyah that is mafresh challah for the entire city. So Reb Shlit Diskin, 130 years ago, came up with an eitzah, and that Tzitz HaKodesh was one of the Chachmei Yerushalayim, and he brings in Tov Reish Mem Gimel. That is 35 years ago. So there was a story out of Pesach. People forgot to be mafresh challah from the matzahs, and this is really genius. Noam advorim lemisha amorim. Reb Shlit Diskin, he said. So Pesach by night, before the Seder, they take a cotton, muflas sumach leish. Muflas sumach leish is a big sugya in Nidadaf Menvav. Nidora v'nidori, hekdesh hekdesh. So muflas sumach leish could be mafresh challah, could be mafresh tumas amaisis, but it's an issa. Lo yisafina le biyadayim. So Reb Shlit Diskin quoted the Toysa Sim Psochim Peiches, Sim Psochim Daf Peiches. There's a machlokes Sela Beisavos Dioraisa, Sela Beisavos La Dioraisa, whether having a cotton participate in Achilas Pesach, whether that is a mitzvah Dioraisa or not. Cotton put them in a mitzvah. But the Torah says Sela Beisavos. So there's one opinion in the Gemara that one should be memanik tanim on the Pesach as well. Tosis asks Akasha, Im Sela Beisavos La Dioraisa. And Minat Torah, tanim are not part of the Korban Pesach. Then how could we have them participate in Achilas HaPesach miderabbanon? Eina Pesach nechol elav lemenuyov. And the menuyim can only be those that have the mitzvah of Achilas HaPesach. So if we give a cotton to participate in Achilas HaPesach, it's actually an issur. Because Eina Pesach nechol elav menuyov, and Menatoyri is not one of the menuyim, so it's an issur d'oraisa. So how, if Sela Beisavos La Dioraisa and Menatoyra Taram are not part of the Korban Pesach, how could we have them eat from the Korban Pesach, and why wouldn't that be an issur of Eina Pesach Nechal Ela Lemenuyah, and somebody that is not a member of the group cannot eat from the Pesach? So Tosis answers, well, when there's a mitzvah of chinuch, there is no isser of lo safinen le biyodayim. Can I have a psuchim b'mura because I have an argument shatu toisvis, so I would like to recheck. Peches omedana from the sechet psuch. Dehasam yalfinen moloi sachilum. ולא יעשה אלה דומיה דשרוצם ונבדס. אבל כי הגוונה דאיקה חינוך מצווה שורי. It's not the middle of Bais. כי הגוונה דאיקה חינוך מצווה שורי. So if she like this can argue this. Well, there's an issue to be mafresh, Tumas and Maises and Challah and Shabbos. But we're dealing with a cotton. But Loisafina and Biyadayim, or Machshan and Biyadayim, no. But Chinuch Mitzvah. Okay, Sheesh Chinuch Mitzvah, there is no Isra Loisafina and Biyadayim. So we take a cotton, and we have him being Mafresh Challah for all those that forgot to be Mafresh Challah from their matzahs. So on one hand, the Challah is valid, because set up by Suvis. On the other hand, we have an Isra, but for him, after all, Chinuch Mitzvah, and Chinuch Mitzvah, there is no Isav. Lo Isafina le biyodayim. And really, it's a marvelous idea. First quoted by the Tzitz HaKodesh, and many Achronim discuss this Eitzah. And many of them recommend it le Halacha. And Sorachi and Godel Mekametamim. So I saw some Presdei Gedolim that dispute and argue against this Eitzim. It's an Eitzim Hadin is a Mutlu Somachleish by a Froshas Chaz. Is it valid or not? So the Gros, Choydek on the Shulchan Aruch and Shinam Medalev says that a Chotan Somachleish could be Mafresh, and the Gros says La Halacha, it is not valid. After all, we're dealing with the Rabbanon. Challah B'zman is the Rabbanon. And as we saw in the din of Tavale She'ein Balavaz V'zin, we consider this as a Sofik D'Rabbanan and a Sofik D'Rabbanan. L'kula, so I think Im Shum, we definitely could rely on the Shulchan Aruch and not be Choishish L'shitas Agro that Mifras Somach Leish Ein Hafrashosei Afrosho. I think it has nothing to do with the Toises in Psochim Peiches Ve'ein Ha'niden Doim Alarayim. In Psochim Peiches, when a gadol does exactly what he is doing, it is a mitzvah. Exactly the same thing. But to be mafresh Challah and Shabbos is an aveira. So what type of a chinuch is this? It is an aveira. A mafresh, and that's a Mishnah Masechet Bais. So what Tosfos says, this is chinuch. He is participating in Achil of Korban Pesach. Exactly the same act after his bar mitzvah will be a mitzvah. Now, technically, it's an aveda because he doesn't have a din of a monu ve'en a pesach nechal ela lemenuya, but because it's chinuch. So the iser of lo yisafinin leviyadayim falls, and what is left is mitzvah's chinuch. But this is definitely not chinuch that a kohen should be mafresh Challah and Shabbos. That's an aveda. Hafroshas Challah in itself is a mitzvah, but it is an aveda to be mafresh Challah and Shabbos. So what type of a chinuch is this? That is lo yisafina levi yadayim. So I don't think it has anything to do with Tosfos. Tosfos deals with the question, this is chinuch in its purest form, where mechanech etoten not only eat matzah, not only eat mora, not only say the Haggadah, partake in the Korban Pesach, because after your bar mitzvah, this is exactly what you should be doing. But after his bar mitzvah, he should not be mafresh Challah and Shabbos. And that is the reason we don't do it, and we ask him to do it. So, what does it have to do with Tosfos? I don't think it's B'chlal doim ala Tosfos, and I think this is a Chasson and Avona connecting this to the Tosfos. But the bigger problem is Ein Zechia L'Kotten. So, B'froshas Tumas Amaisis, it must be based on Zechia. Either Shlichus or Zechia. How could a person be mafresh on Peiros of others? So, did we discuss it the last year or year before? I've been giving so many shurim lately, I don't remember. Was this the previous year? We discussed at great length. So when a person is mafresh Challah Peiros Chaveiroi, and there is no Shlichus, It's either shlichus or schia. Ein shlichus lakoten, but ein schia lakoten. And legabe, the dinam of schia and shlichus, muflas sumachish is not relevant. That is a limited din only legabe nidorim. So, how would his afrosha help be valid legabe peris shelachedim? That must be based either on shlichus and cotton, and a muflas sumachish ain't about shlichus, but ain't loy zechia. Once again, by Riva Chatzeres, we can rely on the cotton, but that is a din mesuyim that we find only by Riva Chatzeres. I don't remember any source that by every dvar mitzvah, yes, zechia the cotton. No. By Riva Chatzeres, the Gemara says the Riva Chatzeres the Rabbanon, so a person could be makna, the benoi, the bitoy haktanim, that is a din mesuyim only in a Riva Chatzeres, because the Riva Chatzeres the Rabbanon. And Riva Chatzeres says, ikroi the Rabbanon. Rosh Hashanah is Zichron in the Torah. So I think this Eitzah doesn't stand for the very simple reason. Muflas Somachrosh could do a neder. He could be mafresh Challah. Ein halacha ki shittas agrob. The Shulchan Aruch paskins that Muflas Somachrosh could be mafresh Challah, and we rely on the Ramah, but he has no schiyah.
If you would be covered all the Challah with Daskar's matter, then it would work, right?
Okay, so if would be makna all the matzahs for the cotton, yes.
Just won't keep on catch the math.
No, but we still have a problem. Ein schiyah lekoton, we can't be zercha for him, nor he could be zercha to others. So we would need to bring to his house all the matzah, and he should do physically a kinyan chotzer, but he doesn't have a house. So how will he be koine for chotzer? We can't be zercha for him because ein schiyah lekoton. By dasacheres makna means if he does a physical kinyan, dasacheres makna, he could be koine. But ein schiyah lekoton. So nobody else can do a kinyan for him. So we'll have to bring all the matzahs to his house, and he won't be able to be koine with chotzer because he doesn't have a chotzer. He will have to do a gebor. Yes. What?
Can you soda would work?
Yeah. Maybe kinyan suda. No, because kinyan suda he needs to give the suda to others, and he doesn't have a kinyan. He cannot give. Only when he gives the suda, it's not dasaches mak. So we will have to do kinyan mashiach or kinyan agabora, and that is a bit complicated. And that is not what the Pshira Diskin had in mind. I think. I mean, the solution was he should be mafresh for all the others, but ein schiyah lekoton, ve'en shlichus lekoton. So how would that work?
Daniel claims based on the Tosis given Samachay that since he's B'Torah, Shumasumais was Alfmufel, so that he's also B'Torah contribution.
Yeah, so there is a Tosis in Gittin Av Samachay that b'milza the Isa b'nafsha yesh shlichus. That's a Tosis once in Shas, and it's a big chiddush. I'm not sure, I don't think that's nifsach la'halacha. So I don't remember the Achronim deal with it, but to the best of my memory, it's once in Shas, a big chiddush of Tosis. And the other Rishonim on the spot have other terutzim on the same dilemma, on the same kasha that Tosis asks. So all I want to prove is, as I said, patentim are nice, the falpo, but there probably is a reason why nobody thought of this till the Pshia Diskin. Let's move on, and now we'll also be discussing some unbelievable ideas regarding not the question of a person that forgot to be mafresh Challah, like Chiddush number 1 and Chiddush number 2. Now Chiddush number 3 is Nis'areh. The Challah Nis'areh Be'isa, and some family members ate from the terrorists. Do we have an eitzah? So, as long as no one ate from the terrorists, yeah, that's the Ramah. Shin Chov Gimel. We're Shoyal, and then we're mafresh once again. The Shach clearly says in Sivkot Gimel, but if they ate the terrorists, don't be Shoyal, because then it's going to be Tevel. So, it's better to eat Taroy V'Schala, according to the Mechaber, it's Botel Barov. You don't need Shishim Be'enamino, you need Shishim Be'enamino, but you don't need Kufala Be'emino. If it's all Tevel, then it's a Isser Chomer Tvei. It's not only a Toroivis of Challah, it's Koloi Tevel. Every Kazayas is an Isser Misa, if it would be Tevel Diurais. So the Nefesh Chaya was one of the great Gedolim in Poland. Reb Chaim Elosa Vax, the Rav of Kalish, very choshev and sefer, Shalos Shulas Nefesh Chaya. He was the son of Reb Shiur Kitna, Shulas Malkoi. And Reb Shiur Kitna agrees with his aides. So he says like this: person should be shoyal on the hafrosha, but not on all the hafrosha. He is shoyal 90% of the hafrosha, but he leaves a quantity of tevel that is less than kuf aleph keneged hashirayim. So it's a bottle barav. So he's not mevatel the entire hafrosha. So the shirayim is not choizer tevel. But the problem was, the challah he took off is less than kuf aleph. So, a basic assessment. How many zaysim do you have in the terivus? So it's less than kuf aleph. Is it 1 out of 200? Then be mafresh. Then be shoyal on 50% of the challah. Be shoyal on 60%, on 70%. Whatever is left is less than kuf aleph. So it's bottle barav. Yoichlu anovim v'yizbo. So all she has to do, the one that was mafresh challah, is be shoyal on partial shayla, and the challah that is left, that we do not annul al yedei shayla, would be less than kuf aleph. So it's bottle barav. And that would be a solution lemafreya, because chocham oiker is an edem ekroy. So it's not only mekan lahalat, you could keep on eating, even those that ate will no longer be considered avariyani. So the Nefesh Chaya has a huge pilpul. What about Nefesh Bottle Mitzvah Bottle Kula? Because in Nedorim Daf Chav Zayin we find the din of Nefesh Bottle Mitzvah Bottle Kula. And if a person is shoyal on Mitzvah Neder, then Kula Bottle. So Reb Shiur Kitna, father-in-law of the Nefesh Chaya, says that Nefesh Bottle Mitzvah Bottle Kula is only by Nidre Isur, not by Trumas, Maistas, and Challah. Because he argues, Tumas Amais and Challah also have a tzad of kinyan. And by kinyan, we don't say bottle mitzvah, bottle kula. Maybe we do. Reish Tes and Choshen Mishpat. Choshen Mishpat brings 3 different opinions. The sources in the Mordechai, Bava Masim and Simmer Reishai. If a person did kinyan sudar, and in that sudar he was makna, madbeis together with metaltalin. Ein madbeya nikna b'chalipin. Metaltalin is. Do we say that the kinyan is valid for the metaltalin and not for the madbeis? The Mordechai brings 3 shittas. One opinion is yes, the kinyan is chal the metaltalin, not on the madbeya. The other is, because it's chal on the metaltalin, we say greira, and it is valid even on the madbeis. Opinion number 3, and all 3 opinions are brought in the Ramon, Choshen Mishpat Simmer Reish Tes. Because the kinyan is bottle agabe matbeis, is bottle agabe metaltalin as well. So it's not a milsa de pshita that we don't say by kinyanim, bottle mitzvah, bottle kulo. But the major pilpul is the question of bottle mitzvah, bottle kulo. Rabbi Avram Chechanover was one of the great gedolim in Poland, and he recommends this eitzah not only when we already ate part of the challah, but every time this Aleph Challah Be'issa, he says, be shoyal on most of the Challah, but leave some of it. He wants to solve the problem of Bruch HaLavatollah. There's a big machlokes in Achronim. If a person is shoyal al Challah, does the original Bruch become a Bruch HaLavatollah? Does he have an Aveda and a Mafreya? Because he said a Bruch on a Frosh's Challah, and then he's shoyal. So would that be considered a Mafreya Bruch HaLavatollah? So Rav Avram Chechanover was a big tzaddik and a big Yerechek. So he says, don't be shoyal on the entire Afrosh, leave some of it, because of the problem of Bruch HaLavatollah, and the little that's left will be bottle barah. So first of all, I think bottle mitzvah, bottle killer is b'chlal not an issue. When we learn the sugya in the Dom Daf of Zion, it's not an issue at all. That's the smallest problem of this patent. I think this patent just doesn't work at all. And the problem is not bottle mitzvah, bottle killer. First of all, the halacha is command. We don't say bottle mitzvah, bottle killer only by mishana and not by ma'amid. When do we say bottle mitzvah, bottle killer? If a person says, koinem hana aschem olai, and then he becomes aware that one of the members whom he answered is a family member or a dear friend, and he regrets it, and he is shoyal, he wants to take that friend out of the neder. So the Gemara says, what does he say right here and now? If he says, if I would know that my father or brother or mother is in that group, I would say, Koinem and Osoi Shel Reuven, Shimon, Levi. I wouldn't say, Koinem and Os Kulam. Then we say, Batla Meksosa Batla Kulam. If he would say, Koinem Kulam, besides Pliny, then we don't say Batla Meksosa Batla Kulam. So the Challah, first of all, Chanan Neteles B'Machshav. Don't have to specify at all. He is just shoyed, and the nusach of Afroshas Challah is Harei Challah. So it's not a different formulation. So we don't say Batam Yisas Batam Kula. Secondly, there's a machlekes Ramban and Tosfos. The Ramban says we don't say Batam Yisas Batam Kula only with a Pesach. Tosfos says even Charota. But the halachas of Afroshas Challah, you don't need a Pesach. You don't even need a Charota Mi'ikora. By Challah, ain't halacha kedivrei ataz, ela kedivrei haramo. All the Zichronim say by Challah, you don't even need a Charota Mi'ikora. You just, because it's a toroidus, you're shoyal. So we don't say Arol Batla Mitzvah Batla Kulo. But I think this entire Eitzah just doesn't stick, doesn't make sense. Yesh la'ayin, when we're mafresh Challah or Trumas, what is matir, the tevel? The act of afrosha or the truma? The Challah. What I mean to ask is this: when a person is mafresh truma, do we say if the truma is 1 out of 10, then each 10th of the truma is matir, 10% of the shirayim? If the truma is 1 out of 20, it is 5%. Each gram of the truma is matir 20 gram of the shirayim. If it's chito achas pateres sakriya and it is 1% of the shirayim, then we say each promille is matir 10 gram of the shirayim. Is the truma matter the shirayim, or is it the act of afrosh matter the shirayim? If we say the truma is matter, then when you're shoyal on 50% of the truma, then 50% of the peiros become tevel, retroactive. So what do you mean you're going to be shoyal on 80% of the Challah? Then 80% of the peiros will be lemafreya tevel. And I think it's a davar poshet. That's the way it works. It's not the hafrosha that's matir, it is the truma that's matir. And there's a raya mefareshes from Psochim Nunam and Bais. Psochim Nunam and Bais, we say we're not mafresh Challah Menuoides. And Tosfos explains, we're dealing with the teroivis of chito and oiris. Chito, Challah diuraisa. Oiris, maybe midarabonon, maybe not at all. So there's a chash is going to be mafresh min aptur ala chiyuv. But there definitely is chita in the truma. So as much chita as it is matir all the shirayim. What's the problem that is mafresh from oiris as well? This proves no. But if the truma that he is mafresh is 60% oiris and 40% chita, then 40% of the shirayim is min achiyuv ala chiyuv, but the other chita is min aptor ala chiyuv, and therefore he's mafresh min aptor ala chiyuv. If we say that etzem hafrosha is matter the shirayim, so what do we care if he's mafresh oides as well? But part of the truma that he's mafresh is chita. So why would that be min aptor ala chiyuv? This proves no. When you're mafresh truma and the same challah, then the truma is mafresh ba'ofen yachasi the shirai. So if you're shoyal on 50% of the challah, then 50% of the shirayim becomes tevel lemafreya. By marbe b'mases, we see it's different. Marbe b'mases trumoisa peiroisa mitikonim v'masroisa mikun kolim. So if a person takes not 10% mises, 20% mises, the shirayim is okay. But 50% of the Maisa is devil. So does this prove that the Etzem Afrosha is Matya? Because if 50% of the Maisa is devil, how is 100% of the Pedis Matukan? That is by Maisas, because Maisas is 10%. So Maisas, whatever you mafresh 10%, moil. So the 10% is Matya, the 90%. Whatever is more than 10% never could be Maisa. So that is not relevant. That is devil. Chita, Truma and Challah, Chita has V'teres is a kli. And therefore, Truma and Challah are different. So I think this Eitzah doesn't stand.
Once they're Shoyal Mafreya, you won't say Nimtzal Mafreya that Chilek that lies.
The culture who is not the, yeah, the culture who is the Me'achuz.
Why is that?
If the Shayla works in Mafreya.
The Shailah works in the Mafreya, but does it change the Hafrosha in the Mafreya? It doesn't change the Hafrosha. You can't redo the Hafrosha in the Mafreya. You can undo the Hafrosha in the Mafreya, but you can't redo the Hafrosha in the Mafreya.
No, but I'm
We're
using
left
culture.
that in Achnami we care about the Maaseh Hafrosh, not the Maaseh, about the thing itself. And the thing itself is not half, so I meant that should cover times 2.
Yeah, that is the 100%.
That's my new. Because we're saying we don't care about the Maaseh, we only care about the Maaseh.
Because that's the use of the culture. So I'm saying even if I had this originally, that would.
When he was a mafresh, his intention was to be mafresh this quantity. So that is the way it worked at the time. You could be shoyel mafreya, but you can't redo the hafrosh mafreya. Kach nera lani yazdai.
Is there a problem in Balance?
Would there be a problem with this eights of Eimavat Lenisarachat Challah? Probably not. In the din of Eimavat Lenisarachat Challah is only when his intention is to be Nana Mina Isra. And therefore, the Rishonim explain every Hagala, Mina Torah Ben Yoimoi, we say when you're Magala Ben Yoimoi, you need to have Shishim B'mayim Keneged Isra, because otherwise the Mayim is Nesa, Choyze V'Nivla. So a gola of a Ben Yoimoi is always based on Bittul. So the Rishonim explain there is no problem of Eimavat Nesa because it's not that you want to maximize your Anua and you want to take advantage and be Nana Mina Isa. So in our case, the reason we're doing so is just to solve a problem we already ate. And we're looking for an Eitzah to be Mavatal the Aveira the Mafreya. That would not be an Isra, Ein Mavatal, Isra, Eitzah number 4, patent number 4. And I think this is Mamish Gedolim of recent decades. First found, I think, Rav Moshe Kliers, Toras Ha'oretz. He was one of the Gedolim in Eretz Yisrael. He lived in Tveria. I think it's one of the best Sforim on Mitzvahs Atluyas Ba'oretz. Very lamdish sefer, and he has a kuntus on Challah. So if a woman or a man becomes aware, mamish, Erev Shabbos, that the Challah is nis'arav be'isa. Nobody ate yet, but the eight says to be shoyel, and to be mafresh once again. But to be shoyel, you need a Bais Din or a yochid. It was a Yochid Muncha, and it's a few minutes before Shabbos. And if they're Shoyel on Shabbos, can be mafresh on Shabbos. So what's the eitzah? So Rav Moshe Kleres came up with an idea, which is accepted by Rav Shlomo Zalman in Minchas Shloimeh Chelek Aleph, I think Samach Bais, also quoted in Shmir Shabbos Kel Chosom. Rab Chaim in Derech Emunah agrees to this eitzah. Then you could be mafresh again, and hafrosha number 2 would be chal after Shaila on the original Challah. That is based on a sugya in Nedorim Daf Yud Ches. Ein neder chal al neder. But the Gemara says, if you made one neder, koinem kikazeh olai, and you said again koinem kikazeh olai, there are no two avedas if you eat that kikah, because ein neder chal al neder. Nishal al harashoyno, then number 2 is chal. So these Gedolim say, Tumah is like a neder. Challah is like a neder. Otherwise there would be no Shaila. There are Nidri Yisra, there are Nidri Hagdish. Tumah, Maisa, Challah are same family as Nedorim, and that is why a person could be Shoyal, as we learn in Nedorim Daf Nun Tes and in many other sugyas. So, if there's no time to do Shaila before Shabbos, Halacha Pshuta, that the Tzorech HaShabbos nish'alan ala Nedorim. So first, be mafresh again, and then Shabbos, you'll have enough time to be shoyal on the first of Rosh, and then the second of Rosh will kick in the Yochlu and Novim, the Yizbo. So this wouldn't be an eitzah if you already ate part of the Challah, because of Rosh number 2 is not Chal Mefreya, it's only Chal Mekan or Lahava. But we're not dealing with a situation in which anybody ate from the Taroivis, but just looking for an eitzah if we don't have time to be shoyal before Shabbos. So I saw that the Shlomo Zalman says, yes, Hafrosha number 2 would be valid, but only if the kavona is that Hafrosha number 2 should be Challah after Shaila on Hafrosha number 1. But if mistakenly a woman was Mafresh Challah again, then Yotzal Vatola, and then your shoyal Hafrosha number 2 wouldn't work. I don't know why. If it works, it should work even in that case, but I don't think it works. But if it would work, neder al neder, there is no stipulation. It is only if you're machaven with neder number 2, it should be chal after neder number 1, you shoyal. Pashtus Asugi is ein neder chal al neder. But I'm nishal al rashana, then the second one is chal. Milsa the pshita, it is not only if the kavanah lechatchila is that the second one should be chal, one initial al rashana. So I think Rabbi Shlomo Zalman felt it doesn't make sense. That doesn't. It's not reasonable. If a person mistakenly is mafresh challah again, then it should be challah after his initial harashayna. So no, there's only if that is the kavanah. But if the entire source is neder al neder, then why wouldn't it? You have a funny feeling about it. You should. You should, because I don't think it'll work even when there is intention to be mafresh lachash halosh. So I think ein anidin doim alalai. Ein neder chala neder is only because stand in line. I'm a kom tafus. You know, it's already taken. So initial al no? Then the second neder could be chal. We find a similar halacha, not of Yud Ches, but of Ayin Ches. When a Isha made a neder, and the Baal did Hakama, Nisholen al HaHakama. He could be Mefer, and then Shoyal on the Hakama, and the Hafara will be Chal. Why is that important? Because he needs to be Mefer B'Yom Shamoy. So it's almost a Shkir. He doesn't have time to wait. To be Nishal al HaHakama, he needs a Chacham. Same question as we have with the Rosh Challah. So Isha made a neder, and the Baal was so angry, he said, yes, I won't be made for this neder, and then he regrets it. And he only has time b'yom shomei to be made for. So he's made for now, and then tomorrow he's going to be Nishal al HaKama, and will the Hafora be Chal. And that's a Machoyes that Rashmon Deran. So what these two situations have in common is there's a chefza, and a neder iser is chal al a chefza. The only reason it can't be chal is because a neder chal al neder, like a iser chal al iser. So if chocham oiker is a neder mi'ikoroi, the first is disactivated and null, then the second would be chal because chocham oiker is considered. The reason the second afrosha is not chal is not because ain't afrosha chal al afrosha, because there is no tevel. It's not tevel. You cannot be mafresh only on tevel. If it's not tevel, so it's not like a neder chal al neder. It is not ein afrosha chal al afrosha. It's like a person that's mafresh min hamelach. Ketzed maser nes hamelach. It's like your maser cement, your maser plastic. There is no tevel, and if there's no tevel, then the second afrosha is yotze levatola. Chochem oiker is a neder mi'ikoroi. Okay, so that is another question. How do we deal with chochem oiker is a neder mi'ikoroi? But it's loy damya le'ei neder chal al neder, and it's also not similar to a common afrosha, which is a machlokes derashman deran. The problem here is when we did hafrosha number 2, these peiros weren't tevel. So one would say, but after hafrosha, that they were tevel. So this is a big arichas. How do we relate really to the concept of chacham oiker as a neder mi'ikoroi? Is it like a mekachtos? Is it a gloa milsa and afreya that it never was? Or is it a more complicated halacha? There's a vikuach between the Bais Yitzchak and Reb Shlomo Kruger, Gedoyle Galicia. It's been 100 years since I checked the Bais Yitzchak, and Be'ez Hashem, if I don't forget, I'll recheck it tonight. I don't recall whether Reb Shlomo Kruger writes this in his Sefer Anedorim, or it's just a shmua. But the argument is, the person made a neder and he was over on the neder, and then he nishal a chochem. Is he kosher la'edus without being mekabel divrei chaverus? Reb Shlomo Kruger says he was over on a neder. It's a lav sheyesh b'malchus. Choshe mishpot lamed daled lav sheyesh b'malchus is a rosh. He needs to go through the process of kabbalas divrei chaverus. Bais Yitzchak says, Chochem oiker is a neder mikra. He never had an aveda in the first place. So why does it need to be mekabel divrei chaverus? Reb Shlomo Kruger says, no, at the time, was an aveda. I think the Bais Yitzchak is right. But I also think the Shiur is right. When he writes, it's in a kuf chof tes kuf lam, the person that was over on a neder, even if a chochem is mat in the neder, he needs to do tshuva. And he is avarian. Because in real time, you did an aved. Then in there, you did an aved. So the Shiur deals with benodim l'mokim. The vikuach Bais Yitzchak Reb Shlomo Kruger is an halacha psuliyos. I think there's a difference. Regarding the psak of Beis Din, person could be evil in his heart, as long as he wasn't over on a lav sheyesh b'mais, he's kosher la'edus. Im chochem oiker is a neder mi'ikoroi, then he wasn't over on a neder. Benodim l'mokim, I think the Shiur is right, and the Shiur clearly says it's not isha feirim v'Hashem yislech lo. It's not a situation the Gemara says in Kedushin Peyalef kishahoyer Rebbe Kiva magia leposek hazeh hoyer boicha. A woman did an neder. She wasn't aware that the Baal annulled the neder, and she was over on the neder. And Rebbe Kiva cried, and he said, "Mazu shaloi neskavnu el lecha b'osachaza v'ola bi'odah b'osat." So she needs tshuva, but the Shiur says no. A person that was over on the neder in real time, and then the chochem was oiker, has a bigger problem. He has a bigger aveda. It's not only the machshava. He was over on a chet. So I mentioned before there's a vikuach whether when you shoyal on trimmer, whether the brocha is lemafreya brocha levatol. Some sofer says no. Shuvas yodei shinchof. Hard to understand the some sofer. The some sofer says, what's the problem? The person said, Ashigashonim Tzoysa Vitzivonu, Shaila al Neder is also Vitzivonu, it's also a din Torah. I don't understand what it means to say. So what? But the Vitzivonu was Lahafrus Tumas Amaisis, and it wasn't Tumas Amaisis. Sefer Yoshua and the Chavis Yor say, yes, it's a Brocha Levatol and a Mafreya. I think there's some Sofers right, even though I don't understand his singing it. Because at the time, we performed the mitzvah. At the time, we performed the mitzvah. And I think Heter Chochem is not a birur, like a Mekach Tos, like a Kedusha Tos, like a person that's Mekalish Ishu Al Tnai, Al Menasheim Bamum, Bedim Tzalei Mum, that it's Kedusha Tos. After all, we need a Chochem. And even a Pesach is not mamish etos. But this is a din Torah. Shechocham oikeres aneder meikroy. But at the time, it was a hafrosh. And at the time, we were mekayim a mitzvah. And that is not botul lemafrei. So, I don't have time to be marach more. But when we say that a neder is botul lemafrei and a froshes challah is botul lemafrei, adayin sorech libun, to what extent does that go? Is it the gloa milsa lemafrei that it never was? So the Chassam Sofer says, legabe brocha, it's not a brocha levatol. The Chavis Yor says if he was over on the neder, he still is an avaryan. If Shlomo Kluge goes to the extreme, he's poselatus. Because at the time he was over on a lav. So, when we say that Hafrosha number 2 is chal, after initial on Hafrosha number 1, I think in real time Hafrosha number 2 Yotzel Avatona, because the Peiris weren't there. And it's worse than a person that's mafresh trum of a Peiris Shaddai lo nitlishu. We spoke about that Dover Shalai Boli Yoilam. Because at that time we're mafresh on Peiris that are not Tevel. And there is no Hafrosh of Peiris weren't Tevel. So if we say Gloa Milsa Lamafreya, no. It was Tevel all along. We thought it's not Tevel. But as I tried to explain, no. It's not entirely Igloa Milsa Lamafreya. It's not that was a Toas Be'ikar HaHafrosha. So Lididi, Loi Pshiteli Klal, that you could be mafresh and other Hafrosha, and the other Hafrosha would be Chal when you show on Hafrosha number 1. It's not Doima, it's a Neder on Neder. Because the only reason the second Neder wasn't Chal is because it's taken. So you remove the first, second is Chal. Here, I think the problem is not only because there is no room, but because it wasn't Tevel at the time. So Tzorchim. So, I know that what I said is not a pircha, but you don't need a pircha. All you need is a pikpuk, because this is a new patent. And to come up with a new patent and a new idea, you're the one that needs to prove that it's valid. And if the only sugya we have is those two sugyas, eina nidin loim raya, vadayin sorach iyun. So today, I didn't build. I just wrecked things. But I think that's a chelik of binyan. Maybe it's b'chlal binyan zakenim stira. And I think it's an important limit. When we come up with new ideas, a new patentum after 1,000 years, and nobody thought of them, so I would be very appreciative of the Choshevet Talmid Chacham of this Besmedish, if you could live not all the store. Because I wrecked so many things today, I would not be offended if anybody wrecks what I wrecked today and reconstructs and rebuilds what we tried to destroy. So, Baruch Hashem, Shleinu Shezachim.